All right guys, Hunter Konechny here. Today we're talking shallow water summer fishing. So the summer is a great time of year. You can really have some good days on the water, shallow water especially. So there's plenty of areas out there in the country. I mean, we're fishing out of Arizona, but guys in the South, Florida, the guys fishing ponds, there's a lot of people this applies to. So I wanted to throw a video together and really give you guys all the tools that you need to be successful fishing shallow. So a little bit about myself. I've been bass fishing for over 20 years now. Avid tournament angler. Had a pretty good season this year. It's been fun, and I want to pass some of my knowledge on and help you guys catch more fish. So without further ado, if you're new to the page, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. So summer fishing, first and foremost, let's focus on where the fish are. So we'll get to the baits a little bit later down the road, but if you don't know where the fish are, it's going to be hard to catch them. So let's start with that. So in the summer, in the mornings, they tend to be pretty active. They're usually got about a 1 hour window or so where they're really feeding, they're aggressive, they're willing to move pretty far. It can be a lot of fun. So one quick tip is you want to make sure you're getting out on the water first thing in the morning. I know it's brutal sometimes. The sun comes up super early. You got to wake up at, I mean, it depends how far your lake is away, but sometimes 1, 2 in the morning to get there in that first hour. But that's something that's super important. When I'm starting out, I like to really focus around vegetation. So trees, tules, grass. I mean, other structures could be like docks, chunk rock banks, things like that. And you want to really focus on that in the morning, because that's going to be your highest percentage area where there's going to be the most fish in most situations. So I like to start around cover if possible. As the day warms up and it starts to get hot and things kind of start to slow down a little, that becomes extremely important. So starting out in the morning, you kind of have a pretty wide array of what you can do. You can throw a lot of moving baits, reaction baits, things like that. As it gets warmer and things start to kind of condense down, generally you're going to have to slow down and really start to pick things apart, really focus tighter on the heavy cover. So to kind of start out, I'm going to give you a bait. We're going to kind of walk through the day as we would, like this is more going to be kind of focused on the morning, and any of these baits can work at any point in the day too. I'm just kind of giving you the highest percentage chance to really focus on the best baits at the best times of day as well. So I'm going to start off with the buzz bait. So the buzz bait is one of my favorite top waters. You can really throw this thing tight and it goes through a lot of different things. So you can throw it through grass pretty effectively. You can throw it middle of trees, it'll hit branches, deflect off. I mean, these things really go through cover very well compared to other top waters. And it also allows you to cover a lot of water very quickly. So rather than just being able to kind of focus on little small things here and there, you can just go down the bank and burn that thing and really cover a lot of water quick. So buzzbait's definitely something you should try. Generally with this, there's going to be times of the year like in the fall where it starts to kind of shine more throughout the entire day rather than just kind of in the morning. But talking in the summer, generally I'm going to do this kind of first thing in the morning, maybe the first hour or two. If I'm keep getting bit on it, then I'm going to keep throwing it. But if it starts to slow down, I'm probably going to put this one down. So really your first hour is going to be kind of key for this. And then like I said, you want to be getting this thing as close to the cover as you can. So right through the middle of those trees, right down the edge of those tules, right down the edge of those grass lines, sides of docks, things like that. As far as buzz baits, generally I'm gonna throw like a 1/2 ounce buzz bait. I keep the colors pretty simple, so I'm either gonna throw a white one like this, and I usually do this until the water clarity is like 3 feet and less or so. So if it's more than 3 feet, probably gonna throw the white one. If it's less than 3 feet, I have one that's got some chartreuse in it. Just a little bit more color, just a little bit more options for them to see it. And I'm gonna pick that chartreuse one up. So that's definitely a good thing to do. Like I said, 1/2 ounce buzz bait. One little key with this is I don't really use trailer hooks on buzz baits anymore, but you want to put some kind of trailer bait. So this is just a standard fluke. Kind of gonna want to match like a shad color, or if you're throwing like I mean, if you have bluegill, things like that, maybe you want to do more of like a green pumpkin, but just kind of match the color of your buzz bait. And then you want a trailer there, because what this does is it makes the fish really key in to hit the bait specifically. If you just have the skirt there, there's kind of a lot of fluff where they sometimes, maybe they'll go for the blade or the head or just different things, and they don't actually get the bait. But by putting that trailer on there, it makes them really focus on it, and that can really help you get a lot more bites that you actually land, that you don't set the hook and end up missing the fish. So buzzbait's a good one. Definitely going to start with that in the morning, and then as the day goes, you're going to kind of have to see how they're reacting to it. If they're not biting anymore, then you're going to have to put it down and start throwing other stuff. But as far as equipment, I throw a buzzbait medium heavy rod. I like throwing it on either a 7 or 8-to-1 reel, and I like throwing that with 50-pound braid. So pretty simple. Don't really need to get too crazy with it. Just get yourself a medium heavy 7, 8-to-1 reel and some braid, and you're pretty much good to go on that. Throw it out. You're gonna let it hit the water, and then you start your reel immediately, and you just want to have that thing walking on the top where it just got that blade spinning, gurgling, and then you're just steady retrieve all the way back until you get it back to you. And when they hit it, you want to just kind of give them a second so they can really get that bait, and then set the hook, and you should land that fish. So buzzbait's a good one. Definitely need to give that a try. I'm gonna move on to the next one. So to kind of give you guys another option for a reaction bait where you can kind of move fast and cover some water, I'm gonna give you guys the square bill. So with the square bill, once again, I'm probably gonna start in the first morning or so with that, and then we're gonna kind of let it dictate how the bites are coming on, whether we're gonna keep throwing it past that. So if you're just smoking them, it doesn't really seem like it's slowing down, then throw that thing all day long. There's no point in stopping if they're biting it. If after an hour or two, you're just kind of, maybe you caught some fish, you're doing pretty good on it, then it kind of starts to taper off. Once again, that's probably about time to put that down for the day and start picking up some of these other options I'm going to give you a little bit later down the road. But the square bill could really be a good one. I have more confidence in this than like a spinner bait or a chatter bait, for example. I just feel like I'm able to get these things to recover a lot better. Wooded trees specifically, if you're fishing more grass and different things, then you might have to throw like a swim jig, or chatterbaits work pretty good for it too, but you might have to change that a little bit depending on the specific cover you're fishing. But I mean, if you're just fishing a rocky bank or you got trees or anything like that, it's really hard to beat a square bill. It's one of my favorites. So when you're picking your square bill, first thing you want to consider is how big the bait fish are that your bass are generally feeding on. So if they're pretty small, and that's kind of the general size of most of the bait fish, then I'm probably going to start with like the 1.5 size. So this one right here, this is a 6 cents Crush 50. So they do their sizes a little bit different with 6 cents, but 1.5, Crush 50, somewhere in that range. Like a Strike King 1.5 is a good one as well. This is a Strike King 2.5 here. If your bait fish are a little bit bigger, maybe your lake just has big bass in general, and there's a lot of bigger type forage, probably going to start with the 2.5. No reason in getting smaller if you don't need to. I mean, I like throwing the biggest one they'll bite, so if they're going to bite this one, I'm going to throw this. If not really getting as many bites as that one will, then I'm going to throw the smaller one. As far as colors, I keep it pretty simple. Just kind of try and match the forage that your bass are feeding on. So if it's mostly shad related, then I'm going to throw a shad color like this one here. If your fish are eating a lot of bluegill or different things like that, then maybe throw like a bluegill color. Water clarity also plays a part in this. So if your water is pretty clear, I'd say like 3-4 feet and clearer. Let's say more like 4 and 5 feet and clear, like you can see more than 5 feet deep in the water, then you're kind of probably going to steer more towards natural colors and even translucent at times. If your water is starting to get muddy or pretty dingy, where maybe the visibility is like 3 feet and less, then you can start to get more bold with the colors. So you might want to mix a little chartreuse or something like that in, where it just helps the bass see it easier and kind of key into it. Another thing to consider with the baits there is the noise. So do you throw a bait that's silent? Do you throw one with rattles? How do you choose that? So I'm gonna say more times than not, you're probably gonna have more success on ones that are silent, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of pressure at most of the lakes we fish these days. There's just a lot of anglers out there throwing baits, and the bass get used to hearing those rattles. They know what they sound like, and they start to get shy from them. So by throwing one that's silent, you can kind of sneak one in there that they didn't hear coming, and they just lash out and react. So that silent bait is really a key, where you can get some bites you might not get with the more obnoxious loud ones. But on the turn of that, if you're fishing really dirty, muddy water, then sometimes those rattles help them key in on, and you might get bites you might not have got with the silent one. So if you're fishing dirtier water, then I'm gonna say the noise is probably better. So you gotta kind of experiment with that, but that helps kind of hopefully give you guys some things to think about, and kind of get you steered towards the right direction there. So the next bait I'm gonna talk about is the frog. So the frog is something, I mean, you could really throw this all day, and this is something that just flat works. It gets big fish. It's probably the most fun way to catch a bass there is, if we're being honest here. I mean, have you ever had a bad experience throwing and catching fish on a frog? Because I doubt it. I mean, I'm sure someone's got something to say out there, but I doubt it. I'm sure you've smiled every single time that it happened. But the frog, you can throw this all day long. In the morning, with the frog, you're really always going to be wanting to focus on the cover and trying to throw it kind of deep in the cover. That's really where this shines, because it's weedless, and you can get this in things in places that other baits won't be able to do. So you really always want to be throwing this in tight cover. As the day warms up and things start to get hot, you can really start to focus more on the shady sides of everything. So if you got like a reed bank you're going down, and there's a little shade pocket here, little shade pocket here, little shade pocket here, you want to be targeting strictly those shade pockets, and you can almost ignore the sunny stuff, because bass are like, and people in a sense, like, they don't want to sit out in the sun just like you don't. They want to sit in the shade and be comfortable. So they're going to be sitting buried tight against that cover, right in the middle of the shade, in the coolest spot they can get. So you really want to try and focus exactly on those areas, and you can kind of ignore the stuff that doesn't fit that for the most part as it gets warmer and warmer throughout the summer. So if you're fishing like trees, for example, you've got this whole big round tree, and other parts of the year, like, you got to throw it to this side, you got to throw it right here, right here, right here. In the summer, if the sun's coming like this and the shade pocket's only on this side of the bottom of the tree, you throw it right over that, and you just keep it close to them. You don't got to pick this whole tree apart. You're gonna throw it right where those fish are sitting, because that sun being out is showing you exactly where they're sitting. They're not going to be just sitting in the open. They're sitting right in the shade, tight to that cover. You don't really got to get too crazy with it. Just focus on those areas. So the frog's good one. I mean, this is one of my favorite ways to catch them. As far as equipment, you're going to want to throw this on either 50 or 65 pound braid, extra heavy rod. I like throwing it on an 8-to-1 reel. 7-to-1 reel always works fine as well. So with the frog, you really want to throw it right in that cover. You're going to work it like at max 5 feet away from it most of the time, and then you reel it in and cast it to the next spot. So I'm not just casting this out and reeling it and working it all the way back to the boat. I'm casting it to the target. I'm fishing the target. Once it's done, you reel it in, throw it to the next one. So this is really a target bait. You really are using it to kind of pick things apart and get it in areas that you can't get other baits. So very important tool to have, especially in the summer, and give it a shot, because I think you're going to enjoy it. So next bait on the list, we're really kind of going down as the day warms up here, and now we're kind of at the point in the day where the fish are just buried in that structure, and you got to be able to get it into where they're at and really pick that apart to have the most success. You're not going to just be able to fish vast wide areas in the shallows anymore and get bit like you might have in the first hour of the morning. Now you really got to just pick that fish out and get to him and catch him. So like your crankbaits, buzzbaits, things like that, they still might work, but it's got to be really close to the cover now. So this next option is one of the better ones for just really picking the cover apart. So we got the Texas rig here, we're flipping. So with this bait, like I said, the way you're gonna fish this is you're gonna throw it right into the middle of that shade pocket, as deep into the back of the cover as you can get, because those fish are gonna be hunkered down. They don't want to move very far because it's hot and they're just sitting there trying to be comfortable, and you just gotta get it on their head. So Texas rig is one of the best ways to really get deep in the cover, one of the more weedless baits. Just good around, all around bait, works good. So as far as setup, so let's talk weight, hook size, things like that first, and then we'll move on to the baits. So I'm generally gonna start with either a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce with this. That works well in most situations. There's always a situation where maybe you're not fishing very deep, maybe you're not fishing super heavy cover where you can kind of go lighter, or your cover's super thick and it's thicker than the average guys and you might have to go heavier. So the 1/2 ounce to 3/4 is going to fit most boxes where you can kind of make that work effectively most situations, but we'll adapt as we need to and kind of tweak that to make it work most effectively. So when I'm going to start with the 1/2 ounce, it's generally going to be more when I'm fishing like wooded trees. So I mean, you got like your stick up trees, just submerged vegetation, things like that, where it doesn't have a bunch of matted material on the surface. With a 1/2 ounce weight, almost always that's going to be heavy enough where it's going to pull your bait through that without it getting hung up too bad, and it'll be heavy enough to pull your bait down. So with the 1/2 ounce weight, in pretty much any situation, you're going to want to peg your weight here. So that's just a little bobber stop, and what that does is it keeps the weight at the front of the bait where it can't separate, so that your weight can sink down your line and your bait gets stuck on the tree branch at the top and it never gets down. That holds the weight to it and it just pulls it where it makes it sink down. When I'm going to start with the 3/4 is when I'm probably more around like tules or grass or things like that, where there starts to get stuff that mats on the surface, maybe a foot, 2 feet off the edge of it. You kind of got to get your bait heavy enough where it'll slip through that. So most of the time 3/4 does pretty good for that. With a lot of the stuff that we fish locally in Arizona here, most times that's probably going to be heavy enough to get through the stuff. If it's not, then you might have to bump it up. So if you're fishing some pretty matted stuff and it just doesn't feel like you're getting your bait through that as often as you want to, then you can bump it up 1 ounce, 1 1/4, 1 1/2. You really just kind of bump that up until it's getting through that every time, and you're happy with how it's getting through it. If it's not, then you're not really fishing effectively, and you got to adapt to make that work for you. So I don't like using super heavy weights if I don't have to. It's just a lot of mass down there. There's a lot of weight coming at you if you set the hook and you miss one, or one comes loose off a branch or anything like that. Like, I'd rather get hit by a 3/4 ounce weight than 1.5 ounces if I had to. So try not to get super heavy with them if I don't need to, but sometimes you do have to bump those up, so definitely keep that in mind. As far as baits, this one right here is the Missile D-Bomb. So when I'm flipping, I don't really get too crazy with it. I usually either throw a normal size Sweet Beaver or the Missile D-Bomb, and that's pretty much the majority of what I'm gonna flip most of the time. I mean, you can throw other things with more appendages and stuff like that, but this has always worked good for me. I have a lot of confidence in it. It's simple. You don't really need to branch too far off of that. Most times if you're not gonna bite that, you're probably not gonna catch them flipping anyways. So that's where I start. Now the next thing you want to consider is, do you pick the full size one or do you pick the downsize one? If you're fishing a lake that's got a lot of bigger fish, just kind of normal situation like big lake fishing, probably going to throw the full size one. I'd say 80-90% of the time. If you're fishing a lake that's got a lot of pressure, so you pond guys that kind of competing with a bunch of other guys, if it's got smaller fish generally, so a local example for us would be like Bartlett Lake, I'm probably going to start with the smaller one, and then you can always go up to the bigger one if you're just getting smoked on the small one all day long, and see if you can get some bigger bites by upsizing. So that's generally how I'm going to pick that. Hook size, I'm going to either do this on a 2/0 EWG Superline hook or a 3/0 EWG Super hook. It depends on whether you're throwing the full size one or the downsize one. If I'm throwing the full size one, I'm going to use the 3/0. Throwing the downsize one, I'm going to use the 2/0. So pretty simple there. Colors, I mean, it's pretty hard to beat like a green pumpkin type color. So green pumpkin always works good. If you're fishing real muddy water, you can move to more darker colors like a black or blue per se. If you're fishing more clear water, then I might move to like a watermelon. So that's pretty much kind of the direction I generally steer. You don't really need to, I mean, if they're not gonna bite those colors, you're not gonna catch them anyways. So keep it pretty simple with that. You don't need to get too crazy. Another good one that I like throwing from time to time is kind of like a green pumpkin chartreuse. So Reaction Innovation makes one called called Dirty Sanchez. That color's always worked good. Caught plenty of fish on that one. So hopefully that narrows it down for the Texas rig. I mean, this is a really good technique to throw this time of year, and once again, you're focusing on that thick cover right in the middle of the shade pocket with this, so give that a try. For the last bait, you've heard me talk about this one quite a bit, and it's not for no reason. We're gonna throw the Senko in there. So the Senko just flat works. I mean, this has been one of my staple baits that's been on my deck since like, I mean, January, early February. And I tried working in the winter, a little bit tougher when the fish are deep and kind of lethargic, but this thing just flat works. So the way you're gonna fish this is gonna be pretty similar to the Texas rig in the sense that you wanna throw that, once again, as far in the structure as you can get it while it'll still sink correctly. And you wanna be throwing to the shady side. So if you got this whole big round tree here and the shade's on this side, you're gonna throw on this side. You don't need to pick the whole thing apart. You wanna throw it right in the shade there. When you're fishing this, the actual technique of fishing it is pretty different from a Texas rig. You're gonna throw it out, you're gonna strip some line, and you let that thing sink on just dead slack line. You don't wanna be adding any action, no input to it, no nothing. You let that thing sink on slack line, the bait's just gonna shimmy down doing its thing. And this is one of the most effective ways to catch a bass. This will catch fish when no other bait will work. This will catch numbers, and this will catch size. So you let it do its thing, sink down, get to the bottom, everything's good there. When the bite happens, you really want to be watching your line the whole time this is sinking. One of four things is going to happen. You're either going to see your line start moving sideways, you're going to see it sinking faster than it should be once you kind of get a cadence for how long it takes to normally sink. You're gonna see it twitch, or you go and reel your bait in and all of a sudden it just gets heavy and there's a fish on it. So if any of those things happen, set the hook, reel the fish in, and enjoy it there. But yeah, the Senko is an awesome technique as far as setup. The most important thing with this is we do not add weight to this. We let this thing do its thing and sink natural. We're not adding anything to change the action of the Senko. So just Texas rigged, weightless, nothing special, very simple to throw. It lets you to throw in the middle of the cover. It's very weedless, works very well. Hook, I'm gonna throw the 5-inch Senko on a 4/0 EWG hook. That's perfect size for that, works very well. Line size, this kind of depends on how heavy the cover is. So 10 to 14 is the range I'm gonna throw that in pretty much the majority of the time. If I'm fishing some more sparse stuff, or maybe I'm not around a lot of trees or grass or anything like that, probably gonna throw it on 10. If I'm in the thick stuff like we're kind of talking about today, then I'm gonna throw that on 14, because you got to be able to get that fish out of the cover without breaking them off too. So my rule of thumb with the Senko is I like throwing the smallest line that I can get away with. So if you need to bump up because you're in the cover, then you can't lose the fish either. So you got to keep that in mind. But the smaller line lets it do its action more effectively and kind of doesn't interrupt it as much. And you can get more bites by throwing smaller line, especially in clear water. So if you can go that way, try to, but keep that in mind as far as the cover you're actually throwing in. But as far as colors, you're gonna want to throw, so this color right here, this one's kind of beat up, but this is green pumpkin watermelon laminate. That's my personal favorite color, but if you just throw like a standard green pumpkin, a standard watermelon, that's gonna get the job done for you as well. I don't necessarily think that any of those three colors probably work drastically different than the rest, but I feel like that watermelon green pumpkin is just kind of a good middle ground where it just covers a lot of bases, and I have a lot of confidence in it. So that's generally where I start. If you want to throw more of like a shad color, then throw like natural shad. And I mean, between those two colors, that's really about all you need. But once again, really want to iterate that in the summertime, the bass are pretty easy to find if you're fishing shallow, because they're going to be really isolated to those shade spots. But you really got to get tight in the cover in the summer. So you got to be a little bit more strategic on how you're targeting them to make sure you're getting the bait where the fish actually are. So that's kind of the key. So really focus on that heavy cover, and generally you're gonna find fish pretty quick. But other than that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. I do have a deep water video that'll be coming out soon as well. So for your deeper water guys, that is also a very effective way to do it in the summer. The only key with the deeper fish is it's a little bit harder to find them, but once you find them, they're generally in the same spot over and over again. So if you put in the work, you can really enjoy those deep water fish too, which we'll get to on another day. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Watch out for the next one.